I remember back when I was in my 20s, I caught a cab in New York, and I'm talking with the driver, and he said something that stayed with me even to this day. He was recalling that when he came to New York, he was a young man, and he was ready to take on the world, but, things didn't go the way he had imagined or the way he'd hoped. He did say that when he was in his early 20s, and one of the reasons he came to New York, was because he was a liberal, right? But of course, it was the first time that he started to see, after a while, a series of events, a series of things, wake-up calls, nudge them from being a liberal, a Democrat, to becoming a Republican voter. And the way he expressed it to me was so interesting. He says, if you're not a liberal, if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you don't have a heart. But if you're not a conservative in your 40s, you don't have a brain. And he had a great point, but something profound has happened over the years since then. Take a look at this, folks. So you look back in the 1970s, boys and girls, they were, for the most part, at 12th and 12th grade, very, very liberal. Now, fast forward, for the most part, look at this, it's changed a lot. The girls are more liberal, but the boys are very, very conservative. What has happened? I'm lucky enough to have New York Post columnist Rikki Schlott on with us. And Rikki, this sort of thing has been around in theory for a long time. For instance, before you were born, there was a book called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. It was a famous book, the battle of the sexes. That kind of stuff has been around for a while, but that kind of divergence at such a young age is really amazing.
Yeah, it's not surprising to me that this is exactly at the period of time where I think that woke politics really took off, and there was a girl power, you do you girl thing, which more power to us, that was great. But at the same time, this demonizing young men, this toxic masculinity rhetoric. The American Psychological Association just recently said that traditional masculinity is psychologically harmful, so boys don't have a positive message or positive role models, and I think that for some of them, they're turning to a reactionary Andrew Tate type right as a result.
But it feels like the term toxic masculinity became broader and wider, like making a campfire. You know what I mean? Just think like the things you would find in the Boy Scout handbook. The whole thing became toxic. Yeah. Like, oh, you don't want to help an old lady across the street? What are you, crazy?
I mean, the way you sit is wrong. Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah, and it felt like things that were natural. I mean, there's certain things I was taught as a kid, and there were certain things I just kind of instinctively knew as a young man, and it feels like there's pushback against that. You don't know if you're right or wrong in today's society.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that there are, unfortunately, people that are taking advantage of this pushback from boys and really negative, more conservative role models like Andrew Tate, who says blatantly misogynistic things as a result. Right. And so I think that it's incumbent on society as a whole to realize that boys and men are struggling, to give them positive reinforcement and to not push them into the arms of these opposite extremes.
But I mean, some of that, to your point, though, is on the folks who are in control of the messaging. And if you keep telling someone they're bad and they're wrong, they're going to seek refuge where they can. Another area I'm seeing this, young men are going to college a lot less, more despondency, and then their piece came out here recently about the employment assessment score for candidates under 25 with college degrees. Men, it's just absolutely, it's crumbled. I mean, even after going to college, they're a lot less prepared for the workforce. Again, what is going on and what can be done about it?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of despondency, and I'm not entirely sure what the solution is, but there was also a recent statistic that showed that just since 2019, the average young man is spending 45 more minutes a day playing video games. Boys are turning in on themselves. They're not being useful in their day-to-day activities, and I think that there's just a lot of dejection.
I told people this was going to happen almost 20 years ago because it happened in Japan. It's called the grass eater effect. It's happening in China now with the lie down movement. 30 seconds ago, students are saying they're not going to pay back their student loans. What bothers me about it is while they weren't paying them back, their bank cards went up, their auto loans went up, their retail went up. So here's the thing. If students don't pay back their student loans, should anyone else have to pay their mortgage?
I mean, I think we should just have forgiveness all around at that rate. Why not?
This is really nuts, though. Listen, again, I think part of the messaging, it gets back to somehow you're being treated unfairly, and it encourages this kind of thing. You got to pay back your loan if you took it out.
Absolutely.
You're fantastic, Rikki. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.